Okay.
That's the way that goes.
Yes. You ready? Okay, what it is July 26th, the year 2000, and you're 84 years old, so you're in the halfway point of your life. And
Oh Lord, I don't have to do this again.
but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about you were born in McAllister, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
And,
McAllister, Oklahoma,
and maybe talk about a little bit of your childhood and especially coming to California. How old were you when you did that?
well, let's see. I was born January 1st, 1916. And we lived in and around Oklahoma for years up until until I was 11 years old. And so that would be 1927. And your grandmother, my mother, was trying to keep working. She worked for years, and so she went to Houston, Texas, to see if there's any work down there, because work had mostly dried up in Oklahoma.
Was that during the Dust Bowl?
No, that was before.
Oh,
that was before. She worked for the railroads for years, but it kind of it dried up anyway. So we went to Houston and to see if there was any work down there, because my father's family lived there.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know from our the reunion, we have quite a few people.
Quite a number of Sweeneys down there still, yeah.
Bunch of them. Anyway, there didn't seem to be anything there, and somewhere we went back to Dallas, and
You lived in Dallas?
no, we just drove to Dallas.
Uh-huh.
We were going back to Oklahoma City.
Right.
And in Dallas, my mother met this man who had a car he wanted delivered to California, to Los Angeles. And he would pay her to do it, pay the expenses, plus gas and oil.
Really?
It was a little Chrysler coupe. I'll never forget that car. But it was I think it was a 27 Chrysler coupe.
And so this was you and your sister Kate and...
No, this was when we left Houston. Kate, we sent Kate to Minnesota to visit the Gilberts, and with the idea that we'd go to California or do whatever we had to do, then she'd come back. But at any rate, no, she was not there. It was just grandmother and mother and I.
So the three of you drove
Three
to
of us
California.
drove to California.
And you were 11 years old?
Yeah, and actually we had no idea what we were going to do. Mother didn't. She knew she could work anywhere. But we got into Los Angeles in sometime, I think it was in about June 1928 that we arrived in Los Angeles. And we of course had to deliver this car within a week, so we had some time to work. She had to find a job and this sort of thing. Luckily, she went right out and found a job at the State Relief Association, the SRA as it was called in those days.
Uh-huh.
And where she worked for years until after the Dust Bowl and after.
So you were actually before the Dust Bowl, huh?
Yeah, we were here before the Dust Bowl.
Uh-huh.
That was 1929, I believe it was.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, Kate and I, Kate came out then eventually, and we went to school through Virgil Junior High School and Belmont High School, and
What was your first job out here?
first job was, I guess, was working in Westlake Park on the boats.
MacArthur Park?
MacArthur Park, yeah. And all
On the
these
boat- the
electric
boat rides.
motorboats. All the electric motorboats.
Huh.
And, wait a minute, I've got, hold it a minute. I gotta have, oh,
We have some
no,
Kleenex. Kleenex, please. So I know times were tough, and it was just the three of you. What, or the four of you? Call him back.
Hello? They're not available
So anyway, I know times were tough, and that was just the four of you. It was you and Katie and Maggie and her mother, right?
yeah.
Living in L.A. somewhere.
We were all, most of the time we were right around Westlake Park,
Uh-huh.
MacArthur Park.
And so you had to probably work at an early age.
And, well, I worked in the park for all during high school.
At the
and
boat rides.
on the boat rides. And then after that, well, I got a job at a service station. I worked in a service station. And
That was up in Hollywood, huh?
well, it was in L.A. actually, Virgil, 6th and Virgil.
Oh.
And sometime along about that time, my grandmother died, and she's buried in Holy Cross Cemetery where mother's buried.
Oh, she is?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
so after grandmother died, why three of us lived there in around Westlake Park
Mhm.
till Gail got married to Harry Coblick.
Kay got married.
Yeah, Kay. And
Let's skip ahead a little bit to the big event of the 20th century. Where were you when Pearl Harbor occurred?
oh,
Where were you when you heard the news?
we were at church at St. Basil's Church Sunday morning, and heard about it.
And how old were you then?
Oh, I was 26, 25.
Oh, really?
Well, it was 19. What was it?
We can do the math later, I guess. It was 1941. But so what did you do? Did you run right away to the sign-up place? And...
No, I just, I had just gotten the job with the LA Police Department.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I took their test, passed it, and then so I went to work for the police department. And just about the time I was supposed to be drafted, I went down and volunteered for the Navy Seabees, which
The construction
the
battalion?
construction, but yeah, actually I was a year into working for the police department, which gave me seniority, and then I was called up for duty at the Navy, Navy Reserve really,
Uh-huh.
but so far, I guess I had a year on the police department, which gave me the seniority. I went to work, then I went into the Navy and stayed there for 3.5 years.
Okay, well, where'd you go?
I went to Williamsburg, Virginia for basic training, and then we spent 3 months in Quonset Point, Rhode Island for our advanced training. Then we were brought back out here. Our battalion was the 99th Battalion.
Mm-hmm. Then you went over you took the boat out of San Francisco?
Yeah, we
To
stayed.
Hawaii?
Well, we stayed in Port Hueneme for 3 months, and got more basic training, and then we were shipped out from San Francisco on the SS America.
And you were seasick the whole time.
most of the time. I finally got a little bit of food, but it would stay.
So were in that day and age, the average soldier was probably a little bit older than.
Well, our battalion was average age was 35 years old.
No kidding.
Yeah, because they were all construction people.
Oh, no kidding.
They were all.
Did they ask you if you had experience and you had?
Yeah. I had enough mechanical experience.
So you went to Hawaii,
Yeah.
and we saw a bridge that you had built.
Oh well, that was part of it. That was keep the Seabees busy.
Really, that was just kind of busy
Yeah,
work.
busy work.
Okay, and then you from Hawaii you went over to Guam.
We went. We were. Let's see. Well, we spent almost 6 months in Hawaii building Quonset huts and storage areas.
Mm-hmm.
Then we finally got to. There was a group of us picked out to go to Guam to form a new battalion, and
Things were that was a little bit closer to.
yeah, that was
the
that
action.
was
Wasn't it?
that was where the Japanese were still on the island of Guam
When
when
you
we got
landed?
there. Yeah,
But they were kind of getting. You were trying.
they were out toward the end of the island. They were being forced off the end of the island because they didn't. They just mop up associate,
Uh-huh.
mop up, clean up.
And you told me that at one time that most of the equipment that you had was stolen.
Well, most of the equipment we had was
Salvaged?
stuff that was salvaged out of the invasion of Guam.
Oh, really?
Yeah, boat or motor trucks and jeeps and all that sort of thing had been come in on the first wave, and a lot of it had been shelled and that sort of thing. So, we were a motor pool, which is a repair outfit for automobiles, and so we spent the next almost a year repairing and replacing all that equipment.
And there was and did you build an airfield there?
Well, we didn't, but the Seabees did build 3 airfields.
Oh, really? In Guam?
Yeah,
So
in
that was
Guam.
kind of a takeoff point.
That was the B-29 takeoff point for bombing Tokyo.
But you never, even though you were in the midst of things, you never really got
we didn't
saw
get
combat per se.
We
or
didn't see
anything, but
any
you were-
combat. I never fired a gun in my whole experience, except at a target.
And they won in spite of that. Huh?
Yeah, but they won in spite of that.
That's encouraging.
But after, it was, we were there, I guess, a year. Whenever the armistice was signed, in 1945, I had been overseas long enough that I was among the first to come home.
Really?
And so they put us on a ship, and we went 16 days from Guam to San Diego on this ship.
Did Mom meet you down in San Diego?
Yeah, and when we got to San Diego, and then they shipped us up to Terminal Island, and that's where Mother came down to see me for the first time.
Uh-huh. And that's where she
That's where I was discharged from.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And that's also where you got the news that she had bought a house here in Manhattan Beach.
When she got there.
Well, you.
And she bought this house, and I kept telling everybody that it was the second smartest thing she ever did. But she just first was marry me.
Yeah, right.
Luckily.
So are you out?
Yeah. Let me just replace the battery. We'll be on. Okay, you're on.
Let's get this out of the way.
This is
Let me, well,
ask the question after that.
well, I'd like you to tell me the story about how you met Mom.
Oh. Two very good friends of mine and I, Bill and Harold Lee, and I can't think of Bill's last name. But
It's all right.
anyway, we had known those two guys had known this one sister, Kay Fagan, and her friend or her sister, Lorna Fagan, and they didn't know them for years, and so I got to know them too because I ran around with these two guys, and Kay was to become a nurse, and so she was in a rest home in out in Sawtell, where she had been put after she got this polio.
There was a huge polio epidemic
yeah.
throughout the country, and it especially hit LA hard, right?
Yeah, and these girls were all from County Hospital.
The girls that worked in the hospital got it.
Yeah, nurses. They were nurses
In
training. Anyway, one of the girls was Anita Felsing, who we met just occasionally when we'd go out to visit the Kay and her sister. And so, I don't know what it was. We were going to a birthday party for Kay Fagan, and Harold and I could go, but Bill couldn't go that time. But anyway, I asked Kay if she would bring Anita with her.
What year was that, do you know?
That was about 1940, let's see, 1930. Oh, I'm sorry. I will have to make up the date of this.
Okay, but
Sure.
let's see, were you already a policeman?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was maybe
Well, no, wait a minute. I wasn't a policeman. I was still working up in Hollywood.
so maybe
So
the
it was
late
not-
30s?
Yeah, it was the late 30s.
Huh.
Anyway, so we met him that night, and it's just a casual meeting because I'd asked Kay to bring her along for
Uh-huh.
us. And so we seemed to hit it off all right. So I kept asking her to go out, and we'd go out for.
What would you do on a date? What would you
Usually, I was working then in Hollywood at a all-night garage.
So that's where you take her on the date?
No. So usually Sunday was the only date we could have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
During the day?
During the day, because
Uh-huh.
and I'd have to I'd be asleep for a week. But
So you would work the graveyard shift? And,
Yeah,
and
I was
then you'd
working graveyard.
Oh, that's tough.
And so we did. We got along fine, and it took about 4 years to determine that this might last a long time.
Uh-huh.
And so we got married September the 5th, 1940. What was it? 45? No.
Before you went into the service?
Anyway,
Were you,
the day before I went into service, or the week before I went into service, or no, the year before I went into service.
so it'd be about 41?
Yeah,
maybe?
about
40?
41.
Wow.
Yeah, and I had already gone on the police department, so I was getting 4 days a month off from the police department.
That's it?
That was it,
How much
Yes.
were you making at that time?
and we were making $100 a month. And we decided we were going to get married on September the 5th, and we did, and we went to San Francisco and back in those 4 days. I took all 4 days of my day.
Oh my gosh.
My
Long
days off.
extended honeymoon.
Yeah, and
Did you have any money left when you came back?
yeah, we did pretty well. Well, the day I went in the service was the year I had of my probation.
Oh.
So I got a raise to $200 a month.
Wow, you doubled your salary.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, but then I went into service, and I was getting an allowance there. And
Mom was working where?
Mother was working for in a finance company at downtown LA and living at home.
Uh-huh.
In fact, we had been living with her sister while I was going to work and before I became
After you got married and before
Yeah.
you went into the service?
Yeah.
So that was about a year?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. She anyway. I had a certain amount of Yeah.
I think they.
I had a certain amount of allowance that I sent home every month, and Nita put it away. And she had her salary. And it was just one of those things for a year. We corresponded back and forth and got pictures and all that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
But I got home and got down to San Pedro, and came down, she and Cobb and Maggie and Larry was there, Cobb and Gail's.
Oh, really?
And Kay's first boy.
Uh-huh.
And they all came down to meet me. And I'll never forget it, because Larry had on a uniform like mine.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So they brought us home.
Did you know she was going to buy the house?
No, I didn't. I had no
This
idea.
was a surprise.
And this was a great surprise. In fact, she confessed it right away. It's because she wanted to get it off her chest.
She
And I said, don't even think about it. Anyway, they brought us here that night, or that afternoon, and we settled into housekeeping. This house was completely furnished. And it was just a little beach cottage, but it was just great.
Uh-huh, and it was
And
$5,500?
$5,500. She
Oh my gosh.
she took money that we had put away, and plus some that she had, and
So that was a chunk of change at the time.
yeah, and it was, actually she could only put about 2/3 of it down, and we spent the next 3 years paying it off. But anyway, there we were here, and we came here
So that's
September the 6th, no, November the 5th, 1995. 1945.
1945.
Yeah, and it started
Say that again.
Housekeeping.
Say that again.
1945.
No, say it's November the.
November 5th, 1945 is what was the date we opened the house.
Wow.
Took up residence here.
So, and then 45. So you didn't have any children for about.
No, I was working in the police department. I went to work in San Pedro and worked there for 23 and a half years.
That was a
And I
rough and
lived
tumble
right here.
place, wasn't it?
At one time it was. It got worse and worse, but it got bad.
Yeah, down there, I remember going down to Beacon Street
Yeah.
and stuff. That was all the longshoremen and the.
Longshoremen and sailors got together. I saw.
Huh.
But it was a good job, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And we, of course, you and Gail came along, and which was a great thing in our lives. And
Well, that goes without saying.
yeah. But
Let's
anyway.
we just were in Sand Dune Park, and that was quite an amazing little bit of community cooperation. How did that come about? I remember playing in those sand dunes, and it was kind of just
Well,
nothing.
Actually, they were there for years.
Yeah.
And kids used to go down there and dig holes in the sand, Well, eventually, the city was going to sell some of that sand to the beach and also to Hawaii. And they, I don't know how it happened, but one day a couple of kids got buried in the sand up there because they were playing in it after somebody had taken some away.
Right.
And so the neighborhood down there got up in arms, and because it was taking away these kids' playground. And so there were about half a dozen people that got together and decided that they would, if the city would let them, they'd make a park out of it.
Was the proposal that the city would pay for it?
Well, it was a proposal that we would do as much of it as we could without having any money from the city. But eventually, the city did put in some money and finish it up.
You were the president of
Well,
the Sand Dune.
it went along for a while, and people would do their job, and but it got kind of loose jointed because the people weren't always that interested in doing it. So I told them, I said, if you want to do this, I'll be the head of the group and be expected to have authority to do these things, and we want to do them as we want to do them. And they agreed to that. So when I took over, and
Yeah, you were responsible. I remember going down to San Pedro and getting all these railroad ties from.
well, we all had well, to back up a little bit, in order to do any of this, we had to have funds, or we had to have donations. So there were 2 or 3 men in the group that were pretty good hustlers, and we needed pipe for the sprinkler system. We needed to have railroad ties for the walkways, and that was about it right at that time. But then also we needed all this labor to lay this stuff. So we'd put the pipe in and lay it for a sprinkler system, get it all set, and then we had to have timers, so the thing would go on and off at the same time. So a lot of this stuff was just actually begged for, and we got it from different manufacturers. And the railroad ties were a little harder to come by, but eventually I know I took a semi-truck out in El Monte and picked up a load one time. And then we went down to San Pedro and picked up another load. And we had several truck companies that brought them in once in a while.
Oh, that's great.
And so it was just a kind of community effort. And then the city paid for the restroom building. We designed a restroom building for it, and the city paid for that and had it built, which was something that was needed.
Right.
And they put in barbecue pits.
Yeah, it's an amazing little neighborhood park there. It's kind of nestled into this residential area. Not really one of the more well-known parks and very unique too.
Yeah,
it's
and
certainly
that sand dune, that dune is something that you really have to really look at and see what they're doing.
Well, it used to just be a place where we kids would take some boards and put some carpeting on top and go down and stuff. And now it's a very serious exercise area. It's been taken over by a
at
fitness
one time,
group.
when it first was available, why, of course, kids running down it, they'd push all the sand down to the bottom.
Right.
So the city would have to take trucks and load trucks up, take it up in the top and dump it off. Yeah, so it'd go down again. But it's become a nice little park. Now they're spending more money on it, cleaning it up.
Yeah, it looks very nice. Well, that's great. Okay, let's take a cake break. Okay, quiet on the set. Okay, well, I want to introduce this story because I remember it very vividly. We had taken Gail to see the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl. And we had driven her up and dropped her off, and on the way back, I remember you saying, "What would you think if I opened up a hardware store?" And I thought, I can remember it very vividly. So that must have been in 1965.
1965, I had 23 and a half years on the police department, and I was eligible for retirement. And this hardware store down near the corner, the Roach Range and Highland, was available. The people were closing it, and it's been there for years.
What was it called?
It was called North Manhattan Beach Hardware. And so I checked with the bank and the companies that supplied the hardware and that sort of thing, and found out I could do it, be a shoestring type operation for a while, but we could do it. And so I went into negotiation with Jim
Gingrich.
Gingrich, who owned the building, and he gave me a good deal on it, and so we opened the hardware store. I can't remember the exact date, but I think it was around December the 12th, 1965, and we had all new material on, new equipment and everything, and we went to work, and we were there for 22 years. It's a hardware store.
Yep. Got a little workshop in the back.
We had all full, everything we could do to help the customer do what he had to do as far as hardware.
It was one of those old-fashioned hardware stores where it was floor to ceiling.
Yeah, and we
Absolutely
had it
jammed.
stuffed in there. And
Were we able to? You broke through the wall and actually expanded the store.
yeah, we doubled the size of the store by cutting a hole through from the front area to another section of this same building
Right.
in the rear,
Right.
and it just doubled the size of our.
Yeah, but it didn't take anything to fill that area
No,
up either. did
it was a quick fill.
And people could walk in and bring in their plumbing problems and go up and work on the workbench and use the tools and
Yeah.
rent the tools for $1 a day or $2 a day.
Whatever they needed.
Uh-huh.
And
Just
it was just a
family run.
neighborhood hardware store, and we still have repercussions of people who remember
Yep.
going in there and buying stuff.
Now there was one of two hardware stores in Manhattan Beach, right?
Yeah, there were actually there was one,
Manhattan
which was Manhattan Hardware at down on Manhattan Avenue, had been there for years.
Right.
In fact, I bought a lot of stuff for this house from them.
Oh, really?
when I started working on this house, and that one, and then there was a little hardware store out on
Aviation.
Aviation that was a offshoot of this one downtown,
Oh, right.
and
Right.
but both of them, well, in fact, the one downtown went out of business. They sold it and opened up a restaurant in another building. And the small one, they sold that to a couple, and they're still in business on Aviation.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they're still
Wow.
in business.
Yeah, for a while, but for a while we were the only.
Yeah, for a while we were the only one in town,
Wow.
and so
And that went from 1965 till
1988.
1988.
Yeah.
Gosh.
In the meantime, we had let's see, we had some political activity. Where in fact, the first thing I had done or did was get elected to the school board, local school board.
Well, you were always the Cub Scout leader and for
Well,
PAC
yeah,
849, and you were the PTA president of Grandview, and so it wasn't like you were a stranger to
Yeah, so
civic.
I got elected to that, and then that was with the permission of the chief of police.
Really?
Because when I was on in the police department, why I had to have permission from
Oh, really?
to do it. But then I came to be reelected the second term, and he said no, because they had had some bad influence from several guys that have gone into these little towns and gotten on boards and that sort of thing.
Oh,
And-
really?
and,
So there was too much of a chance of corruption there?
Yeah, well, not corruption, but it gave the police a bad name, because some of these guys, couldn't hold their mouth shut.
Uh-huh.
And they were radical in their views and that sort of thing. Anyway, so that quit that. Well, after we retired from the hardware, well, in fact, during the hardware days, I was elected to the city council
Mhm.
for 3 terms.
Now the first time you ran, you didn't win, right?
No.
The first time you ran, you were defeated, and then the second time you ran, you won. And
then 3 more times, or 2 more times.
there was 3 terms or 4 terms?
Oh. 4.
4 terms.
4 terms, yeah.
So 16 years.
Yeah.
And during that time, you were mayor how many times?
Well, we were mayor once every 4 years.
They took turns, so
Yeah.
you were the mayor.
Yeah.
And
So
but
that-
this city was kind of it didn't have the problems like Hermosa Beach had, or it didn't seem. I don't remember too many big controversial issues that took place here. It was pretty smooth running city.
It worked pretty well.
Yeah.
We worked together with the administration and got things done.
Yeah.
But that's other than that.
That's a good wrap up. That's a good. That's a good.
Oh, also I spent. Was elected 5 terms to this water district, the local water district.
That's right.
Yeah,
That was
on
afterwards, right?
That was afterwards, yeah.
So that was your last political office. And
I retired from that.
any thoughts of running again for anything?
No. I don't want any part of that.
Now that you've retired as the elder statesman
Yeah,
of Redhead
right.
Beach, you have a. Do you think maybe they'll name a school after you or something?
Oh God, I hope not.
Rename Live Oak Park or something.
Yeah, right. Or Sand Dune Park.
That's it. Well, there you go.
Uh-huh.
Well, good.
Anyway, thank you for the.
Sure. Well, thanks for the information. Maybe in the next, we can always go back, and if you think of things that you want to talk about or something, we can
Yeah,
always
you
go back.
rehash it first.
Yeah. Okay.
And see how it works. If you have something you want to talk about, then
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
I think we're done.
She's coming for me, I know.
That's gonna be on your dad's video.
Don't think so.
There's been a hoot owl hanging up my window now. For 6 nights in a row.
What is it?
She's coming for me, I know. And on wildfire, we're both gonna go. We'll be riding wildfire.
Let's go for a walk.
We'll be riding wildfire. We'll be riding wild. By the dark of the moon, I planted. But there came an early snow. There's been a hoot owl hanging out by my window now. 6 9. Where? There's been a hoot owl hanging out by my window now. For 6 nights in a
That just brings
row.
tears to my
I
eyes.
know.
She's coming for me.
She's
I
running
know.
in the opposite direction.
And on. Now we'll turn the camera sideways and get crazy.
I never
And
saw
on
this picture.
wildfire.